Thank you very much. First, I would like to thank the organizers of this conference and also the former speakers. It's been very, very interesting to listen to all of you. Unlike the former speakers, I am not a politician and I'm not an academic. I work, as Inge said, for the Norwegian Ministry of Children, Equality and Social Inclusion. And I'm here to speak about gender equality. I'm very pleased to be here. As all of you know, there are close cooperation between the Baltic states and the Nordic countries, also within the field of gender equality. This year, Norway holds the chairmanship of the Nordic Council of Ministers, and gender equality has been high on the agenda in that respect as well. This is my agenda for the next 15 minutes. You can read it for yourselves. A core issue is how to develop a sustainable society by making use of all talents from both genders. I will introduce a general framework based on Norwegian and Nordic experiences. Both research and economic outcome document that those policies work. Of course, the models cannot be directly transferred to other social, cultural and political systems. But even if not directly transferable, I think it would be unwise not to appreciate the effects and results and experiences made by other countries. So first of all, gender equality is about both genders. It's not a women's issue alone. It's very important to address men when talking about gender equalities. Otherwise, we will not get rid of gender stereotypes, even if those are held by both men and women. Gender equality should not be seen as a small issue on the side of the large economic questions. Social policy, labor policy, gender equality policy, family policy, and economic policy are all interconnected. And gender equality is actually fundamental for the economic and social development of any country. In Norway, for instance, the gross national product would have been 15% less if women were not working. Today, 80% of Norwegian women between 16 and 66 years of age are working. And at the same time, we have a fertility rate of 1.88. One basic issue is that individuals, be they women or men, they should not be forced to choose either or between family and work. They should be able to choose both. That is real freedom of choice. It's a matter of public policies to enable citizens to realize their potential, both as employees, as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as providers, and as caretakers. Any nation must also secure the return on investment in education. This is vital for the economy. We have invested as much in the education of our daughters as in the education of our sons. So not utilizing the competence of girls and women would be a waste of human resources. We need good and practicable legislation. And we also need adequate methods to analyze the effects of the fiscal and financial policies with gender glasses. Are there different outcomes for women and men? Sometimes there are. In Norway, all the political parties but one have practiced voluntary quotas for their electoral lists for more than 30 years. And today we have almost 40% women in parliament. it is strongly believed that this gender balance in democratically elected bodies is almost a must to raise the issues of balancing family and work and gender equality, and to have the willingness to legislate in these areas. Social trust and radical individualism could be seen as paradoxes. But in fact, these two values are at the very heart of our democratic and economic system. The Nordic countries represent nations with very high individual autonomy, and still the state is strong and enabling. In Norway, the primacy of individual autonomy for both genders has been institutionalized through a wide range of laws and policies. The interdependency within families has been minimized through individual taxation of spouses. Care for the elderly and minimum pensions for all are public matters. We have a paid parental leave of about 1 year, with a 3 months quota for the fathers. Daycare for all children from age 1 to 5 at an affordable price makes it possible for all parents with small children to work, and that is an immense step for women. Almost all grown persons in Norway are in the tax-paying positions, so that they are paying back to the common good and receiving rights in return. True freedom for women and men comes through having their own income. To solve the different, oops, it's jumping. There. To solve this difficult balance between family and work life, there are some structures that should be in place. The tripartite cooperation between the social partners, which has been mentioned earlier, is very important. And it should be transparent as well. The Norwegian national insurance system is the result of this tripartite cooperation. It's based on taxes from employers, employees, the state, and the self-employed. And it was invented in 1966. That was before we started exploiting oil in the North Sea. So it could be argued it is possible to develop welfare systems without being a rich oil country as Norway is. Also, strong work environment acts for protection and predictability in work life are needed, so that rights and duties are agreed upon, both at the national and at business level. Also, a strong gender equality act, setting standards for non-discriminatory work environment and daily life is necessary. In Norway, for example, we have a Gender Equality Act that protects, and Work Environment Act that protects pregnant women against job hazards, and also secures the right to return after parental leave to the same job that you had before. So there are several legal and economic structures to reconcile work and family life that are necessary to be in place to secure that both women and men can combine careers and children. There are some distinct historical roots to this, and I'll mention only a few of them here. The first is the willingness by parliaments to legislate on social matters. In the Nordic countries, that has been in place since at least the early 1900s or even before. A strong labor movement and a strong women's movement as well has been pushing the state forward in social matters. Before proposals are taken to Parliament, The social partners and the civil society are consulted on all major social reforms. We have been investing in free education for everyone, and there's also an acceptance for paying taxes, paying back to the common good, to universal systems for healthcare, pensions, sick insurance, disability pensions, parental leave, and early childcare. I'll mention two important measures for a family-friendly work life. The first is the parental leave. Shared family responsibilities have made it possible for both men and women to make a balance between the family and working life. Today the paid parental leave in Norway is 47 weeks with 100% pay, or 57 weeks with 80% salary. And 12 weeks of this leave is a quota for the fathers, which cannot be transferred to the mothers. This father's quota was introduced in 1993. There has been, and there still is, a debate about this quota system applying to the private sphere and the family. But it is a fact that 90% of the fathers use their quoted time. This is in strong contrast to the way it was before the quota was introduced. Before 1993, only 3% of the fathers used the parental leave at all. So this has made men take more responsibility at home. We have in Norway daycare for all children under school age at an affordable price. There have been made great efforts over the last few years to ensure enough places for children. And the state has subsidized the price so that the fees paid by parents have been reduced. In business life, Norway has adopted a regulation on gender balance in the boardrooms in both the private and the public sector. The reason behind this is that talents are equally distributed between men and women, and a majority of the university graduates are actually women. But in 2003, only 7% of the board members of public limited companies were women. So that meant competent women were not seen and not recruited. The law requires at least 40% of both sexes in company boards, and it was adopted by a large majority of the parliament in 2003. The law covers the largest private companies and companies owned by the state and by the municipalities. And there were lots of counter-arguments when this law was introduced. There was a lot of criticism about the intervening state, that it would be impossible to find qualified women, that women would not want to take on such responsibilities, and even that companies would have to flee Norway in order to avoid such regulations. But in the years to come, all these arguments proved false. The legal measures have been a success, and also they did not cost anything. They have increased fairness in representation, good management, and changed the boardroom cultures. But there is no doubt that it pays off to observe and implement human rights. And gender equality indeed is an integral part of human rights. So it's a question of rights, but it's also a question of sound economics and to meet the future in a sustainable way. My message to you is that investing in women has been a prerequisite for the Norwegian welfare society and economic growth. Individual freedom implies that women must not be forced to make a choice between having a career and having a family. In Norway, we have managed to have high workforce participation among women, combined with high birth rates, through decades of strong emphasis on the welfare society and gender equality rights. Thank you very much.
question for